Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writer Podcast. I have with me today horror writer Katie Mary. Hi, Katie. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm very well. Thank you for
Great.
having me.
You're a firsty. Have you ever heard of that term before?
No, I'm
Uh,
assuming it means something about being first.
No, it means that your first name and last name are both firsty names.
Oh, okay. Yes. There you go.
So, because I'm hoping I'm not going to call you Mary at some time during the episode because I keep on looking at your name and Katie Mary. Which one is it?
It's fine. It's actually just my first name. I just use it as my writer's name is just.
Oh,
It
okay.
is just a double-barreled first name.
Ah, okay, very good.
Otherwise, it'd take up the whole cover.
Right, that's good. So you are a horror writer, and your latest book is A Man in Winter, which we'll get into a little bit later. But before we do that, I just want to get, for our listeners and viewers, a little bit about your background. And can you tell us who you are and what it is that you do?
Yes. So my name, as you've already said, is Kate Marie, and I come from Norfolk in England, a little bit away from yourself.
Right. Where is that in relation to, say, London? Because I've heard the name before, but I'm not really sure where it is.
It's on the East Coast.
Okay.
So if you're in London and you go up a bit and you go east, then you're in Norfolk. It's the little bit of England that looks kind of like a butt.
Okay. Right.
The little butt that sticks out, that's me.
So are you on the coast then, or?
Yes, yeah, I'm in a little town just literally on the Norfolk coast, about 15 minutes away from my house. You hit the beach, which is very cool.
Cool, very cool. And what is it that you do? Is writing your full-time gig, or is it
I wish it was.
Ah,
I wish
okay.
it was. I actually work for our National Health Service.
Okay.
I work in the quality section, just making sure that everything's as good as it can possibly be. But one day in the future, I hope to make writing my full-time gig.
Okay, very cool. And let's talk a little bit then about how you became a writer. Was this something that you were born with, that you knew you were going to do, or did this develop for you a bit later?
I've written stories since I was very, very small. I imagine quite a lot of people have. But I first started writing semi-professionally. And when I say semi-professionally, I mean making submissions to magazines and whatnot, not getting accepted, not to start with. But I started doing that when I was in my very late teens, early 20s.
Oh.
Yeah, I hate reading the stuff I was trying to submit back then. It was not great, but it was an early start, I like to think.
I see we have some guests in the back.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Would you like to introduce them to our audience?
Certainly. The little tuxedo behind us is Mia. She's a rescue from Romania, I think. And the little orange chappie is named Finnegan. Finny for short, or Butt most of the time, because he is a butt.
Very cool. It's always funny how pets want to get in on the action when we sit down.
The minute I put a headset on, I think it's because I'm usually, the minute I do this a lot for work, and the minute I put the headset on, they think, oh, if we pester her, she'll give us treats, so we go away. And I've accidentally conditioned them into this really unhelpful behavior.
This Pavlovian response that you've engineered. Okay, so you mentioned you started writing when you were a teenager. Were you a big reader as well?
Oh goodness, yes. I credit my mum for both my love of reading and my love of horror.
Okay.
When I was very small, my mum used to read me stories when I went to bed. And my mum read me Clive Barker when I was going to bed. I think it was so she didn't get bored as well. But the first one, or the first one that I remember, was The Thief of Always, which is actually a children's book, I think.
Yep.
But it's a really, really good book, and it's stuck with me. And ever since then, I would basically pick up books that my mum had read. So every time she finished something, if it was reasonably age appropriate, then she'd pass it down to me. So I
Okay.
do credit my mum with my love of Clive Barker, Stephen King, Terry Pratchett. She got me into all of those guys.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm a big Stephen King fan too. In fact, I have a sister podcast where I just do Stephen King related material. So I'm glad to hear that in your horror journey that he is part of your development, I would think. So that's
He's
awesome.
a big part.
Yeah. Any favorite works from King? That
My favorite one so far, because I haven't read all of them yet, but my
okay.
favorite one so far is Pet Sematary.
Ah, yeah, that's his most intense story, for sure. Yeah, and yeah, great. And so you've got this background. Your mother has nurtured your reading, and you went from that into your writing. Did you once you started going to post-secondary education, did you take any creative writing courses, or was that just something that you just developed on your own?
It was mostly developed on my own. I really, really wanted to go into a creative writing course post-secondary education. I wanted to do it at college, and I would have loved to have gone on and studied English literature or creative writing. Thanks, Mia. In my post-secondary education, but unfortunately, I fell prey to the "you won't make any money doing it, so don't do it" speech. And instead, I went in and I studied law, and I went and got my law degree and then my master's, and then I went into the legal profession for just under 10 years. Then I decided I hated it and I left.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that's a big change for you.
Yes, yeah. I am actually, now talking of education, I was actually accepted last month. I keep losing track of time. Time in itself is a complete lie. But I was accepted, I think, last month, maybe the end of February, to do my PhD in creative writing. So that's going to be super cool.
Congratulations.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's great. So you've nurtured your writing talents outside of your educational background. How did you go about that? Did you join any writing groups or online or however you did it? How did you get like feedback for your work and things like that?
I started off just reading a lot of books. Basically, just down at my local library, I would go and pick up all of the books you could get on how to write short stories, how to write novels. Then when the magic of the internet popped up, show my age a little bit there, I did a lot of online learning for writing, and I did join a few online writing groups, and I actually met my partner in one of these writing groups. So we both write, and that's how we met about 10 years ago this year now.
Okay. Does he also write horror?
No, he's a fantasy writer.
Oh, okay. That's a big field. That's very popular nowadays. So that's good for you and him. So you started out with short stories then?
I did, yes. Yeah, I actually really struggle with long form fiction.
Okay.
This is why I think my first proper published piece, she says it's been picked up by an actual publisher, is a novella rather than a novel. And every time I sit down and try and write a novel, it turns into a novella. But yeah, I did start in short stories. I really enjoy reading short stories as well, so writing them just seemed like the natural progression.
Sure. And do you consider yourself a outliner, or do you just wing it?
I plan to the point where it's probably ridiculous.
Okay.
I'm a big planner.
Okay. So you don't like the free roaming style of writing then?
Not for myself. I just can't do it. I find it really anxious if I do that.
Okay.
I need to know where the story's going. I really enjoy the planning phase. It's one of my the traps that I often fall into is that in my head when I'm planning a piece, it looks fantastic, because when I'm planning it, I see it as a finished thing in my head, and I'm like, it's going to be great. This is going to be fantastic. And then I write my first draft, and it's awful. And it's not until it's gone through a few edits and like been really polished that it actually starts to look like what it should have looked like when I was planning.
Right. So
I always have to fight that disheartened moment after you finish the first draft, and I'm like,
right. So when you've done your outline, is it pretty granular, or do you allow yourself like freedom from point A to point B as you're writing that out?
I do plan a lot of detail, but
Mm-hmm.
then when I'm writing it, if it starts to go in a different direction, I will just go with it just to see where it goes. I will still
Mm-hmm.
keep the plan. The
Sure.
plan goes somewhere safe where it
Mm.
will be protected forever.
Okay. And do you have to know the ending of your story?
Oh yeah. I usually
Yeah.
actually start at the ending. I will have an idea and it's usually an ending, and then I will have to work backwards from the ending to think, how on earth do I get to this cool scene that I've planned?
Okay. So even though you've read Stephen King, you don't use his writing approach, because
No.
he considers it like a lost fossil that he's trying to uncover.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware that he doesn't like writer's notebooks and whatnot as well. He says they're where
Right.
ideas go to die, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I think he says that from a very unique position, because he's writing full time and
Yeah.
he's just got these ideas and he's got the time to do it. But if you're like us mere mortals, where you have a day job and things like that, it's impossible to keep all that at track. So I don't agree with that piece of advice at all. But
No.
you know, he's unique in that perspective. But I know, like John Grisham, he has to know the last line of the story before he starts it. So it's interesting talking to writers how everybody's unique and has different approaches to how they get the work done.
Yes, yeah. My, as I said earlier, my partner's a writer, and we have a lot of very interesting conversations because we are completely different in how we go about it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have a good idea. He like builds stories around characters, whereas I build my story and then put the characters in it and just sort of see what they do.
Interesting, interesting. So you've do you have beta readers? Like, are you beta readers for each other, or do you have other people that help you? Yeah.
Yes, he sees most of my work more than any of my other beta readers that I've sort of shanghaied over the years. He definitely sees almost everything. It's very rare that something will go anywhere before it's gone through Paul first.
Does that cause any friction between the personal and the writing life, or?
No, it's tricky sometimes because we both write in very different genres, and things that would work in the fantasy genre wouldn't work in the horror genre, and vice versa. And sometimes we will give each other notes like, why did you do this? Why could you have done this instead? And we're like, no, actually, it has to be like this so we can get to this point. And I didn't think of that. And it's actually more helpful because it gets you thinking about things in the way that you wouldn't for your own genre, if that makes any sense.
Yep, for sure. So are you a morning person, or do you?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, so you do all your best work first thing in the day then?
Yes, yeah. I actually get up quite a while before I start work, and tend to do a big chunk of writing before I start work. And then I will do my day job, and then if I've got time between the end of the day job and, I don't know, dinner or going to the gym or something, then I will try and squeeze in a bit more again at the end of the day. But what I produce in the morning is always just so much better than what I get done later.
Yeah, I'm the same way, so I totally understand where you're coming from. So now that you've been writing for a couple of years, and you've got a couple of books out now, I believe that A Man in the Winter, is that your third novel? Is that?
It's, sorry, I real struggle sometimes because it's my second one that's out.
Okay.
I did, as I said, when I started writing when I was much younger, I did self-publish a few.
Okay.
And then I took them away again so that nobody in the world can see my shame.
Okay. So then this book is traditionally published?
Yes, through Bridget Gate Press.
Okay. And do you have an editor with this publisher?
Yes, they were kind enough to give me a lovely editor who was very, very helpful, and I can't for the life of me off the top of my head remember their name. They are credited on the book though.
Okay.
But they were really, really nice, and I would recommend them if I could remember their name.
Okay, I'm sure it'll come to you.
Just says quickly looking.
Yeah. So I'm curious then about A Man in Winter. Can you explain, or do you have your elevator pitch for the book that you use when you're talking to people about it?
Yes, certainly. A Man in Winter is a story about Arthur, who is a widower, recently widower. His wife, Molly, passed away 2 years ago under very violent circumstances. She was actually
Mm,
killed in a home invasion.
mm,
And Arthur, after her death, he was diagnosed with dementia. And the story opens with Arthur's daughter helping him move into an assisted living
okay.
village,
Mm-hmm.
like a facility. And once he's been there, I think it's literally the first night, he sees Molly again.
Mm,
And Molly's come to ask him for help. Um, they did catch the gentleman who broke into the home, but she's telling Arthur that there was more than one chap involved and that
mm.
she can't rest until justice is served effectively.
Okay. So
And
what was the genesis for this idea?
when I worked in the legal profession, a big part of my work was what we call private client work, which is putting together wills, lasting powers of attorney,
Mm-hmm.
all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happens everywhere, as far as I can see, is that everyone leaves this to the last minute. Nobody thinks
Yeah.
I'm going to get a lasting power of attorney until they get the diagnosis of dementia, or
Right.
they have a near miss, or something happens to trigger the I need to get this done and I need to get it done right
Mm-hmm.
now. And I worked with a lot of people who were in the very early stages of dementia,
Mm.
and talking to them, they were so different to how I'd seen people with dementia portrayed in the
Okay.
media, how I'd seen them in films and how I'd seen them in books.
Mm-hmm.
And it was absolutely heartbreaking talking to them because they were all terrified,
Right.
partly of what was going to happen to themselves, that they were worried they were going to lose themselves, but more
Mm-hmm.
what was going to happen to their families. And this
Right.
was why they were like, right, I need to get all this stuff sorted. I need to make sure my children are okay. I need to make sure my family's okay. I need to make sure they know what to do.
Mm.
And I sort of took all of those people and Lovecraftian style mushed them together to make Arthur.
Mm. Okay.
And he's like an amalgamation of all those people
Right.
I had the pleasure to work with.
And dementia's sort of an umbrella term, so because it could
Mm.
cover things like Alzheimer or whatnot. Is there a specific type of dementia that your character has, or?
Arthur has Lewy body's dementia.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. Can you expand on
It's
that a bit?
one of the, I say obscure, that's not really the right word, but it's one of the less well-known ones.
Okay.
I picked that kind of dementia in particular because of a lot of the symptoms it has. It
Mm-hmm.
causes things like hallucinations.
Okay.
So you never know if Arthur is, if it is a supernatural story or if it is just Arthur's descent further into his diagnosis.
Mm.
It also causes, trying to think of the best way to put it, sort of like disassociative episodes, for
Okay.
want of a better word, so
Right.
that you could think like you lose a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're present in the moment, you might
Mm-hmm.
actually not be. It's very
Right.
hard to describe without all the notes in front of me. But
Sure.
also simple things like you can't read clock faces. You need a
Mm-hmm.
digital watch, things like that. So it's like Arthur loses track of time a lot in the
Right.
book.
Yeah. I'm just going through some like the top 10 things here. Memory loss that disrupts daily life, changes in planning or solving, or challenges, sorry, in planning or solving problems, difficulty completing familiar tasks, confusion with time or place, which I think is what you were alluding to
Yep.
a bit earlier, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships, new problems with words and speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps, decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from work or social activities, and changes in mood and personality. So I don't know how many of those you incorporated in your story, but the end goal, I assume, was to create an unreliable narrator or point
It
of view.
was. That's exactly it. Even like spoilers, even at the end of the book, you're not quite sure.
Ah, okay.
And it's one of the things that's popped up. It's a question I've been asked by a few people. So what was actually going on then? Was this a supernatural book, or was it like a look at the diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, no, you have to make the decision on your own. I don't know.
Okay. So the horror aspect of the story beyond, a person losing their themselves and the ghost of his wife, is there other um, elements or apparitions or ghosts or whatever that he has to deal with?
The only real ghost you see, I say real ghost, the only ghost you'll see is Molly.
Okay.
And what happens to Molly throughout the course of the book. No spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
But another aspect of the horror side of it was the isolation,
Mm-hmm.
partially that Arthur puts on himself because of what he's going through, and his fear of basically being branded as a mad old man and locked into like a care home that he can't get out of to go and help Molly.
Right.
So there was a lot of fear and horror there,
Mm-hmm.
as well as obviously the diagnosis itself is kind of terrifying.
Right, for sure. So this this sounds like a challenging story to write because the narrator is so unreliable. Did you find that a challenge, or you've just sort of honed that through multiple edits and drafts? Like, how did that work out for you?
This book went through a lot of edits and drafts.
Okay.
But it is something that I even worry about it, like now today, even with the book being out, are bits of it too obvious? Are bits of it not obvious enough? Is it clear what Arthur's thinking compared to what it is that he's doing? Is it obvious that at this point what Arthur is telling you might not actually be the case of what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really challenging. It was something I found very, very difficult at times, and required the use of a lot of beta readers. A lot of my friends and family got a lot of emails off me saying, look, would you mind reading this and tell me what's your takeaway from like this paragraph? What do you think is happening?
Right. Right. So did you have did you consult, like, I know you said you had a lot of experience with dealing with people like this, but did you like have a medical doctors or experts that you could reference, say, does this seem in line with what I'm doing with dementia, or is it a little too outlandish, or like how did you approach that?
Unfortunately, at the time of writing the book, I didn't work for the National Health Service, so I didn't have any doctor friends. I was still working in the legal profession at the time.
Okay.
I just did a lot of research, and we did have some medical experts that we would use for various bits and pieces, mostly capacity related bits and pieces. But I would read a lot of their reports, and they basically explain what they're looking for and the kind of behaviors that you might see in certain cases, and they would be explaining it for judges and whatnot, but people with no medical background, so it was really easy to understand, which was very helpful.
Right.
But just that with a lot of research.
Okay. And is the story told strictly through Arthur's point of view, or
It is, yeah.
so you never switch it up at all?
No.
Okay.
There are other characters in there who make appearances and tell you what they're thinking and feeling. Well, they don't tell you, they tell Arthur. But the whole story is told from his point of view.
Very cool. So it kind of has a Sixth Sense vibe to me. I don't know if that's if that was something that you were maybe influenced by. I'm not sure, but
I'm not clever enough to write twists like that.
Okay, so there's no twisties in that, you know?
No, just a lot of ambiguity.
Okay, and the story would live and die by the character of Arthur. So is this a character that people, based on the feedback you were getting, that really empathize with him, and they're in his corner for the course of the story?
Yes. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but
Go ahead. That's what we're here for.
A lot of the feedback that I've got has been that Arthur is a very real character. He's very sympathetic. People have seen their relatives in him. Several of my friends who've read it, they saw a lot of their own family members in how he acted and how he felt, and some of the things he said. And in the worst possible way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, like, one of the people in my circle is actually refused to read the book because they lost a relative to dementia, and they're
Oh,
like,
okay.
no, can't do it, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is perfectly fine.
Sure,
So,
sure.
trigger
Yeah,
warning, in-depth dementia.
yeah. It's sadly, you know, it's becoming a more common problem nowadays. So from that perspective, you've definitely tapped into something that I think, as you just pointed out, a lot of people can relate to. So
Mm.
that that probably makes it quite poignant. Again, I'm thinking of another movie just recently, I think a couple of years ago, with Anthony Hopkins. I think it was called Father, and
Yes.
it has sort of the same
Mm.
mechanism with it, in that you don't know what he's seeing is real or not
Yeah.
because of his condition. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very challenging book. I guess you like to challenge yourself.
Why not?
And that book is out right now, correct?
It is, yes, yes. It came out last summer.
Oh, okay.
So it's been out
Okay,
for a wee while.
so that's a bit of a time ago. What's been happening for you since then?
I've tried another little experiment myself since
Hmm.
then, and this is a word that I can't pronounce because I've only ever seen it written down.
Okay.
But it's almost like a found footage, but in a book format. There is a
Okay.
word for it. I just can't pronounce it.
All right, like
But it's
epistolary.
that's it. See, look at
Okay.
you, genius.
Dracula, Bram
There you
Stoker.
go.
Yes. Okay,
Exactly that
interesting.
that kind of thing. So I had a little experiment with that
Okay.
myself, and that came out at last October. I popped that on KDP just to see what would
All right.
happen.
All right. How'd that work out for you?
It's not too bad. I've had a little bit of feedback, not as much
Mm-hmm.
as I got for A Man in Winter, but a little bit, and it's had some positive feedback, which it was cool. It made me think it was a worthwhile experiment,
Sure.
even if I'm not sure if I would do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Just because,
Okay.
again, it's the same sort of problems that I had with Arthur. It's like, am I telling people too much? Would people really put that in an email, or is that just me trying to tell people information?
Right.
It's like how
Right.
to information dump without information dumping.
Right. Yeah, that's always a tricky balance for sure.
Such fun.
So you've done that. Are you working on anything else right now?
I am. I am. I'm working. I mean, I'm writing short stories all the time and
Mm-hmm.
popping them out to a lot of magazines and
Okay.
anthologies and whatnot. But at the moment, I'm working on another novella,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called, or at least working title, it's called The House.
Ooh.
And again, spoilers, the main character dies in the third chapter, and then
Mm.
the rest of the book happens.
Okay.
Still
Is this
told from that character's point of view, but they're
right?
dead.
Okay. And when do you expect to have that out?
I'm hoping to finish the draft I'm working on probably by August this year, hopefully July if I can get some time.
Okay.
And then I will be looking at getting it out to editors. And after that, it depends on how much changes it needs and how long that will take, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe in a year or two, she
Okay.
says.
All
So
right.
it's a little bit away, but again, I do actually have a novel that is going out to agent at the moment as well.
Mm-hmm. And
'Cause
can you talk about that, or you don't want to jinx it?
yes, no, it's fine.
Okay. What's
One of
that
them
about?
things. That one's called A Walk in the Woods, and that
Okay.
is about, effectively, I've been calling it the impossible forest.
Oh.
Children in keep going missing in this forest.
Mm-hmm.
Never children who live in the town on the edge of the forest, but children who visit,
Mm-hmm.
they keep going missing. And then a couple of months later, they'll turn up again. Sometimes they'll turn up in a path, in a road, and they'll be able to get back to civilization.
Mm.
Sometimes they'll turn up inside of a tree or
Mm.
up a cliff or in
Wow.
other completely impossible places.
Mm.
And the story is told from the point of view of Tobias, who is one of the search and rescue. And he's also got a severe alcohol problem
Yeah.
to the point where he gets, yeah,
Another unreliable narrator.
another unreliable narrator. I seem to like them. Not even on purpose.
Yeah. So that's an interesting idea. Where did that come from?
That came from my love of horror in the forest. I
Oh,
really liked the forest setting, and I was
okay.
determined to write something out there. And I listened to so many creepypastas that are set
Oh,
in
okay.
forests, and I'm like, I have to do something like this.
Do you
I
have any
have
do
to.
you have any woods near you?
Not near us, no,
No.
no. We've
No.
got Thetford Forest, which is maybe about an hour's drive, so
Oh,
it's not
okay.
too bad.
Okay. I thought maybe you were on your daily walks or something that you went to the
No,
woods or
no.
something.
Maybe when I was younger, I grew up in Wiltshire, which is in the West
Okay.
Country, near
Okay.
Wales, and we had a few woods and whatnot around there, but still nothing particularly impressive.
Okay. So I'm curious with the way the publishing industry is nowadays. A lot of people are going independent and whatnot. You're currently working with a more traditional publisher, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, but you did do some KDP you mentioned with your short stories. So you're doing a
yes,
blend, right?
yes, yeah. If I finish a piece and I think this has got some legs,
Mm-hmm.
for want of a better phrase, like if I think it could, if it's actually good, to put it
Mm-hmm.
bluntly, then I will try and send it out to agents or small independent publishers. If I'm looking at it and I think it's not terrible, but it's also not likely to get picked up because it's
Mm-hmm.
either a bit weird
Mm-hmm.
or it's in something that's a bit niche, like my Firefly story that I mentioned, where it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of like found footage.
Right.
I thought that was just going to be a bit too weird. I was like, everyone's going to look at it and go, "Yeah, no, what are you doing? You're weird. Go away." And in that case, I will do it. I say do it all myself. I'm never going
Right.
to do as good a job, but I will do things like get a cover designed myself. I will
Mm-hmm.
run it through an editor and pop it up and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. A lot of writers are um, get themselves tied to a series. Is that something that you've considered at all? Like, I don't know, like you've got a man in winter, you could do a man in spring, a man in summer, a man in fall, like something like that. I don't know if you've thought of something like that or no.
I can't even write a novel. How could I write a series?
Okay, well, it's just
um,
had to ask.
it's I'm up for doing things in a theme. I
Hmm.
don't think I could write, at least not at this stage in my career, she says.
Hmm.
I don't think I've got it in me at the moment to write a back-to-back series with like the same character going through various bits and pieces. But for example, my PhD is going to be a collection of short stories focusing on disability representation in horror.
Oh,
So
okay.
each short story will have a main character or another character in there with different disabilities, and
Okay.
then they will go from there. So that's about as close to a series as I think I'm ever going to get at the moment.
All righty.
So
So it, this is probably a question I should have asked you off the top when we were talking about your writing. Is do you what category? How do you categorize your writing, your horror writing? Is it more psychological? Is it more slash and gore, or where does that fall on the spectrum for you?
I'm definitely psychological and supernatural.
Okay.
There is, I'm not going to lie and pretend there's no gore, but
Hmm.
I don't go in for like all the blood and guts, detailed descriptions. You're not going to be
Okay.
grossed out reading anything
Right.
I've done. Um, I like to think I'm quite matter of fact about things. Like if somebody gets injured,
Hmm.
again, spoilers, people get hurt in Man and Winner, um, then I will you won't get like pages of description about it. I'm not like a torture porn kind of person, for
Right.
want of a better phrase. It's
Sure.
just, yep, this person got hurt. Yep, there was some blood. Never mind. What's next?
Hmm. So that comes from a little bit from because you mentioned earlier is pasta horror, um,
Yes, yeah, the creepypastas. I
creeper
love the
pasta,
ones that get under your skin a bit.
right? Can you just explain that term for people that might not be familiar with it?
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry. Creepypasta is, I'm not sure what the official net definition is, but it's like campfire stories on the internet. So
Right.
it's the kind of stories you would sit and tell around a campfire. It's sort of like it's a mishmash of urban legend. There's some folklore elements in
Hmm.
there. If you're really looking for a good one, I would recommend the Tales from a Lonely Broadcast Station. Bloomin' marvelous, really, really good, and it's a really good one to start with.
Okay, very cool. I think that's all the questions I have for you. Is there anything that hasn't come up yet that you would like to mention at this time?
Gosh, no, I think you've actually covered everything. You've even talked about bits I wasn't expecting to talk about today. So
okay,
go you.
Okay, well, that's excellent. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and I wish you all the best with your future projects. And who knows, maybe down the road, a year from now or so, maybe we'll be talking about what your next big project was.
That would be lovely.
All right. Okay. Well, Katie,
thank you for having
me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Or your
Have
evening.
A good one. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to bed now.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.